Hey everybody, Kim here with Little Biz Resources, and today let's talk about social media reach and the importance of marketing omnipresence. Yes, that is a mouthful. So let's look at how much of your audience do you reach on social media platforms. All right, let's jump straight into Facebook. So Facebook organic reach, which means free, and organic just means you post it on there and you don't really, you don't run ads or anything. Now, Hootsuite reported, and this was in August of 2021, they said it's no secret that most social media platforms operate on a pay-to-play model for brands. The average reach of an organic post on a Facebook page hovers around 5.2%. That means roughly 1 in every 19 fans sees the page's non-promoted content. 1 in 19, okay? Now, Ignite Social Media in April of 2021, and of course they're both pulling from different data sets, said new data suggests organic reach of 2.2%, and they even say in there could be as low as 1.1% for some brand pages. So that's not a great reach. Now, YouTube organic reach, again free, Hootsuite reported in June of 2021 that the reach varies by content. Okay, that's what they reported. Everything else is pretty much Kim stuff here, right? If your video has good engagement when it is first published, that's within the first 24 to 48 hours, your reach will be better. Okay. And this is tested. This is shown to be true. I mean, you can test it yourself and you'll find that if you get some views and some engagement within the first 24 hours, and I extended it out to 48 hours because I've had a couple that they didn't really take off until like just after 24 hours, and then they started to get some momentum, right? So I think it's 24 to 48 rather than just the first 24. Now, I have a couple of videos that have had more people watch the video than I have subscribers. Okay, now, and that's not on Little Biz Resources channel, by the way, though please do watch a bunch of videos here, right? But I have another channel where it's my older channel. I was looking at that and I was like, oh, wow, you know what? I have actually, several hundred views on some of these, and I only had like 150 subscribers. So now, but keep in mind that not all the viewers are my subscribers. So if I have 150 subscribers and I have 300 views, maybe 50 of the subscribers watch that, maybe 100, but probably not 100%. It's not that common to have 100%. Some channels maybe, but for the most part, no. Now, YouTube Shorts, which is, they're vertical videos or square videos, whichever, and they're less than 60 seconds, and they're specifically shorts, versus regular videos, this kind of caused some weirdness in the algorithm. So it's hard for us to be able to specifically say, oh yeah, this is what your average organic reach is, because it's messing with both. And when they introduce shorts, and they've been continually changing it since they did that, it's messing with the numbers. And so there is no real number that we can pluck out, right? But as an example, my sister's YouTube channel is in a semi-popular niche, and she's had shorts. She did some shorts, and they've reached hundreds of people within a few days of posting. And she has less than 50 subscribers since it's a brand new channel, right? So less than 50 subscribers. And I think one of them is over 1,000 reach already, right? That is 1,000 views for that matter already. That's pretty good. Now, Pinterest organic reach, again, free. Pinterest released idea pins in September of 2020. And to be honest, again, this is another one that they have made some massive changes. And this is within the second part of 2021. It's around July or August, whenever they did that mass sweep, not that long. I mean, it was right at the end of July, beginning of August, I believe. And they changed it so that idea pins become the most visible. They are extremely visible. And by far, they get more visibility than traditional pins. Now, of course, this is going to vary, right? This is going to vary from account to account. But me having a relatively small account, I had switched earlier this year to, kind of test a little bit in there and realize that, oh my gosh, if you're brand new, it's hard. Guess what? If you're brand new on Pinterest, idea pins by far will help you grow faster. And in my testing, idea pins that gain a little bit of traction. So, for example, I did one idea pin and it had like a reach of 27. I don't know why. It could have been 100 variables. I'm still testing to figure out if I can narrow down why. Because I did another one that I posted yesterday and it already has over 400 reach. And I mean, I have about 3,600 followers, but most of those are people who never get on. So it's the algorithm kind of shows that, right? So in short bursts, typically you're going to get traffic that is a day or two long on that. However, it boosts other posts as well. So if, like, for example, I think I had about 1,400 reach on one of my idea pins. Most of them not to my followers, because again, my followers were from forever ago and they aren't even on Pinterest anymore. So this reach, let's just say it's about 50% on that. So 50% burst over, 3 days, but it wasn't just to the idea pin, right? It was to pins that hadn't seen any traction at all. They were pins from a year ago or a year and a half ago, and so it's boosting these other posts and not necessarily posts that are related to the idea pin, right? Because it doesn't necessarily do that, but it could, depending on if you're using your entire Pinterest strategy correctly, it should be boosting the stuff that is related, because your pins would be related then. But anyway, that's a whole different strategy we'll talk about another time, but it increases your overall visibility for your entire account. And because of this, it is extremely difficult to say if you put a pin on Pinterest, what kind of reach it will get. I can tell you within 24 hours, not much, unless it's an idea pin. That's the only thing that seems to be working right now, and that's reported by lots of places. Now, almost exclusively, if you put in a standard pin, which is just an image, you are going to get very little reach on that within the first 24 to 48 hours. And some people haven't seen any momentum for months on it. And then all of a sudden it takes off, right? So idea pins are definitely the way to go on Pinterest if you want visibility. All right. And again, that means we have no idea what those numbers are. So Twitter organic reach. Now, something that nobody ever talks about, and I know this because I'm pretty sure it happened to a couple of my accounts, but new accounts. So if you're not on Twitter, don't get on it for me. Don't do it. Say, Kim talked about Twitter, I'm gonna get on Twitter. No, I am not saying to get on Twitter. I'm just covering it because it's a social media thing and blah. New accounts may get sandboxed. Now, this is something that some people know about, but nobody ever really talks about. And that is what sandbox means, is that when you tweet, you'll see it and you go, oh, wow, it's tweeting, but nobody's like seeing it. It doesn't look like anybody's seeing it. That's because they're not showing it to anybody. You are literally sandboxed. And I know there's ways to get out of it and everything, but pretty much if you're getting sandboxed, it's just Twitter being a jerk. So I don't know what to tell you. But Twitter does not publish or otherwise release information about organic reach. Why? Because Twitter does what Twitter wants to do. Followers, and then on top of that, followers can choose how they view tweets, right? So they can view them with the algorithm, or they can view them the way they used to be, where they just get the most recent tweets. So it's really difficult to be able to pick out and say, oh, this is what you're going to get for an average, right? I primarily use Twitter for potential SEO value. And honestly, I don't even know if I do that anymore. I think the value of this particular value for SEO purposes has kind of diminished over the years. But if you're like me and you set it up through automation, it doesn't really hurt to do it. At least it's not reported to hurt. So, I mean, might as well. I mean, if you're sandboxed and it's automated, it's not hurting you one bit. All right. So LinkedIn organic reach. Again, this is free reach. I had to leave free in there just in case people skip through it. So Ignite Social Media in April 2021, they said this: when it comes to LinkedIn, organic reach increases slightly. Our findings show that the average organic reach sits at about 5% per post, but could prove to be as high as 10% for some brands. Taking into consideration the same as before, theorizing you have 150,000 followers on your LinkedIn page, on average, 7,950 followers will see your content. Okay, so that's LinkedIn. Now, Instagram, I pulled this so you could see kind of a comparison of Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you can see that there's this huge range, right? So they're kind of giving us a bar of 9.4%, but it can go up higher. Some places have reported as high as 25% reach, and that seems to be about the highest, is 25% reach. So that was in April of 2021. They're giving this benchmark here. So let's define reach before we jump into the numbers real quick. So reach most likely varies by platform. So let's just take Facebook as an example. From Facebook.com, this is what they say. Reach is the number of people who saw any content from your page or about your page. This metric is estimated. Estimated. Okay. And then to follow up with that, impressions, which is another number you may see, in your analytics, are the number of times any content from your page or about your page entered a person's screen. Now, all platforms likely estimate. They're not going to give you exact numbers because that's their information, right? And they may not know. They may not have a way to track that fully. And they undoubtedly use different variables to determine reach. But something to think about, if someone is scrolling, let's say they're scrolling through Facebook and they stop scrolling and they sneeze. So what, they're paused for 2 or 3 seconds or whatever, or they stop and talk to their cat because their cat jumped up on their lap or whatever, or their kid runs into the room. That happens to me a lot. The kid part, not the cat part. And let's say your video or picture is on their screen for a period of time. This might count as reach, right? And we've talked about this before in Little Biz Resources with ads and everything. And this is a challenge with ads, especially with image ads. When people are scrolling and they accidentally hit the image, they're just scrolling and they end up pushing it. And all of a sudden, oh, that's engagement. It's like, oh, well, that's great for the algorithm, but it doesn't help for truly reaching the right people, because now somebody who didn't really mean to do that did that. So the same thing happens when you're thinking about reach, is that, however, they're talking about the number of people who saw any content. So impressions and reach are probably going to be similar numbers. And that's a challenge, is that how do you figure out how many you actually reached? So if our reach is 5% as a number, is it really 5%, right? All right. So how much of your audience do you reach per post? And this is being very generous. Okay, so let's just go with 150,000 subscribers or followers. Facebook at 5% is 7,500 people. YouTube, 150,000. We again said very significantly. Perhaps if you're doing shorts or you have a shorts YouTube channel, maybe 300,000 people then. Of course, you have to have 150,000 followers in order to do that. But the point is that YouTube is very generous in their reach. Now, Pinterest, if you use strategy, I would guess around 25%. Right? That's going to be my guess for organic, which is the free side. So that would be 37,500. Now, Twitter, again, why are we talking about Twitter? LinkedIn, 150,000 at 10% is 15,000. Instagram, 150,000 at 25% is 37,500. Now, keep in mind your reach is not all your followers, but others as well. So if you have 150,000 subscribers or followers and you have a 10% reach of 15,000, that just means 15,000 people total were reached, not necessarily 15,000 people of your subscribers. Okay, so this is important to understand, because if you're like, hey, I'm reaching, I have 150,000 subscribers and I'm going to just pretend that I'm individually, uniquely reaching them all on these platforms, you aren't. Right? So those subscribers, they've subscribed to you and they're not seeing your content. Now, many experts say this is why you need email marketing. Let's take a look at email marketing, right? According to MailChimp.com, which is a big, huge email marketing platform, the average email open rate for all industries we analyzed is 21.33%. Now, I think the highest was like 27%, right? So it's not, so this average for the industries, it didn't range so significantly that it's like, oh, you could get up to 50%. No, it was pushing it at 27, 28%, right? So let's just go with the 21.33%, 150 subscribers. You would have 31,995 potential opens. Not too shabby, considering that it's just sending an email. Now, average click-through rate, according to campaignmonitor.com, is 2.5%. Okay, so that's going to be the click-through rate of the people who opened, because people who don't open can't click through. They don't have choice. So that would be 31,995 times 2.5% equals 800 clicks. Not horrible depending on what you're doing, but really not great, right? So what are we to do, right? First, marketing omnipresence. Okay, what this means, marketing omnipresence, is basically being everywhere marketing-wise. Right? Omnipresence is usually related to religion, and that, God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. Same thing. We're going to be marketing omnipresence people, right? We're going to be on all of the channels as we can. So we're going to get as many channels as we can find your audience and dedicate your resources to. So if you're like, hey, I have enough resources that I can target 3 channels, you want to make sure those 3 channels are the channels your audience is on, right? So second, we're going to be on as many channels as we can first. Second, we're going to think about ways to get our audience off the algorithm and into more of what you control. So emails are definitely better than social media, right? Because first of all, you can use emails later on for other marketing things. So that having that email is critical for long-term success. But, social media is just unreliable. The algorithm changes all the time. Emails, you still have spam problems and a bunch of other things that we're not going to talk about. but emails are definitely better than social media, right? If you're going up the ladder here. Then we go to SMS. So that would be text messages or push notifications via an app, which I've talked about in my Appamize review, right? Still never 100%, but in my Appamize review, you can see information on the app option, and they do have an SMS integration. So if you wanted to do both, you could. And I'm going to leave it at that. If you're interested in that, check out the Appamize review. The link will be in the description. All right, so next steps when it comes to social media marketing, right? And the videos are going to be covering. So we're going to start to cover the most important steps of each marketing channel, except Twitter, because why? I'm always going to say that I do not understand Twitter. I will never understand Twitter. I didn't understand it from the day it came out. I still am like, all the jokes from when it first came out still flood through my brain every single time anybody mentions Twitter. I'm like, oh my gosh, people sitting on the toilet talking about stuff. Yeah. Anyway, let's make sure your audience is on these platforms anyway, so that they're on the platforms, right? So we need to talk about how to find your target audience. And then we also need to check to see if your target audience is on each platform, right? Those will probably be separate videos, but as we walk through this, you'll start to understand why it's so difficult to find and reach people now, because everybody, all these platforms are in control. So we need to get our people out of their control and into things that we have a little bit more control over. Again, not 100%, but at least better odds, right? So after we've kind of figured out our target audience and where they are, then we're going to, set up ways to move our audience off the algorithms and into those things that we control. Then finally focus on the actions that move the needle right away. Again, you want to focus on the platforms your audience is actually on. So these platforms all change regularly, and each one has its own strategy. So you don't want to waste your resources on a platform your audience isn't on. And I'll use LinkedIn as an example. It's funny because I was reading something that said, oh, well, if your audience is employed, if they are a business owner or a business leader, then you should be on LinkedIn. And I'm like, well, I don't think employed is necessarily the factor for this, right? Because if you think about this, you're like, oh, well, I mean, there's a ton of people who are employed, then my target audience must be on there. Not necessarily, right? Because if you think about what the purpose of LinkedIn has been traditionally, it's to connect employers with people who are looking for jobs. That's what it was to begin with. And it's shifted slightly, and you can do some lead generation there and a lot of business to business. It has some opportunity on there. But for the most part, if you're targeting, if you're selling something retail, you're not going to be on LinkedIn. I mean, yes, is it possible? Maybe, but that's what you got to find out, right? So those are things that we have to figure out before we start focusing on which channels which social media channels are best, right? So anyways, we're going to focus our efforts on the actions that help build our businesses to make money. For example, like we now know that idea pins are critical for our success on Pinterest. So if our audience is on Pinterest, then we need to go ahead and start incorporating more idea pins, or idea pins period, if you're not doing that, right? Things like that. All right, so this is going to be this video, and the next ones we'll start diving into the target audience. So if you have questions or you need more information, there's something missing, something you specifically want covered in a future video, post your questions. And I don't know why I leave inquiries in this slide, but post your questions and inquiries below. Hop into the Facebook group and ask questions. Of course, the links for everything will be in the description. Check our channel banner for the video schedule. So we don't just cover social media marketing. We cover, affiliate marketing, Etsy, print on demand, various e-commerce stuff. We do a lot of we mostly focus on affiliate marketing, business to business, and e-commerce. Those are kind of the main areas that we're in. And then we also do, of course, marketing. So a lot of different pieces of information coming out. So check our channel banner to see the video schedule, and then join us on Thursdays for the live Q&A. And if you like this video, please, go ahead and hit that like button and help us spread the video to more people. And I thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out with questions. Thank you.